If you want to be truly outraged and disturbed by a horror book, then you need to watch this video. Hello my fellow weirdos, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be talking about 6 books which truly disturbed me. Now, these aren't classed, I would say, as extreme horror as such. They're more on the transgressive side, I don't know. So while their content isn't going to be extreme, like typical of extreme horror books, the content is extremely dark. So if that kind of book isn't for you, do not watch this video. Let's get into the books. So the first book that I want to talk about is rather a popular one, and I can imagine quite a lot of you would know this book, and that is Tampa by Alissa Nuttin. Now, when I first read this, obviously the cover, I don't even know if I can be showing this on YouTube, to be honest. I might have to censor it. But yeah, the cover is extremely I feel like, yeah, it speaks for itself. But this book follows a female predator in a school, and it is actually horrendous. It goes into very vivid detail of this woman's thoughts. Like, you get to really get into the inner workings of Celeste, the main character's mind. It is told through first person narrative, and yeah, just the way that she just confidently expresses her thoughts is, and in sort of an arrogant way, is just so, it's honestly, it makes my skin crawl. Celeste teaches in a school in Tampa in Florida, and she is obsessed with 14-year-old boys. This book essentially dives into the start of her obsession to the end of her obsession with a particular 14-year-old boy. So we go through the full cycle of that, and actually, interestingly, after this book was written, Alissa Nuttin herself said it was inspired by the true case of Deborah LaFave, who actually slept with a pupil in, I think it was like 2005, and she wanted to make the point that not all predators look the same, and not all predators are men. And I think she really does this well. This has been compared to, obviously, Lolita, but it's definitely a more extreme version. A lot of people aren't going to like this book for obvious reasons, because it does repel you. There are some very graphic and horrific scenes in this, and the ending just gets more and more unhinged. As the book goes on, we just get more and more unhinged, to the point where you just want to throw this book across the room. And there was a few times where I was contemplating, well, there was a few times I had to take a break and just to gather my thoughts on this, because it is actually horrific. Having said that, though, the writer did do an incredible job at kind of exploring the female predator psyche, and yeah, it's definitely a book that, if you are into psychology, if you're into the dark minds of individuals and you're interested in that sort of thing, then I would definitely check it out. But yeah, just massive trigger warning. I read this a couple of years ago now, and I still can't stop thinking about it, so I think that says it all, really. The next book I want to talk about is The Necrophiliac by Garbrielle Wittkop, which is a French translation. This book first got published in 1972, and now unfortunately the author has died. But this didn't get translated till, I think, 2011, which is just a prime example of why we need to keep talking about and bigging up translated fiction, because this is a masterpiece. This is very much in the I'd say it's very reminiscent of like Edgar Allan Poe's writing style. It's very gothic, but it's a lot more dark than Edgar Allan Poe. But this is about, well, this is told in the format of diary entries. We follow the main character, Lucien, who is necrophiliac. Lucien writes into his diary every night. He confesses what he's been up to, which is pretty much grave robbing and having sex with corpses. This is very graphic, but the way that it's told is almost so lyrical and poetic that you as a reader, you read in the book and you think, oh wow, this is beautiful, but then the content is so extreme that you're like, wow, maybe this isn't beautiful, what is this? I don't know. So it's very conflicting reading this book. It's very short as well, and it's honestly just a stunning read. And again, we have that juxtaposition between very lyrical and beautiful prose and disgusting content, and I am here for it. It's also quite funny in places, which you can imagine, well, you can't imagine why, to be fair. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this book to do it justice, other than if you are into this style of book and you're not offended by the extreme content, which involves children in some cases, by the way, disclaimer, pick this one up. Now, a book that follows a similar suit to this one, in my opinion, but it's conducted in a different way slightly. It's written in a different way, is Zombie by Joyce Carol Oates. Now, again, this is told in diary entry format, but the writing is drastically different to the previous book. This isn't lyrical prose, it isn't beautiful prose, it's almost like disjointed, and if anything, that makes it worse and more disturbing because it's almost so authentic that you have to think, wow, is this real? Is this not real? So we follow Quentin Blake in this book, who essentially, the book is called Zombie because he likes to, how do I say this? So he likes to do to his victims, he likes to sedate his victims that much that they kind of represent zombies. So they're halfway between living and dead. This, I believe, out of all these books I'm going to talk about, really disturbed me the most, and I genuinely think it's because of the writing style. And this writing style isn't going to be for everyone because it's not written correctly. Like, it's not grammatically correct. It's going to annoy some people, but it's just so disturbing because Joyce Carol Oates really got into the head of a deranged psycho, and she really made it work with this book. Almost to the point where you're like, Joyce Carol Oates, are you actually a psycho? Because you know how to write one extremely, extremely well. Yeah, but anyway, this plot basically follows, again, diary entry format, and Quentin Blake just talks about his victims and what he does to them, and yeah, as the story goes on, we just get to find out truly how disturbing this individual is. I don't want to really say more about this book, to be honest with you. Yeah, if you're into human monsters, psychology, definitely check this one out. The next human monster style book, psychological book that I want to speak about, I realise all of these books are very much following one character and their psyche. This is the last book that I'm going to talk about like that, and then you will get two different books at the end. But the next book I want to talk about is Father of Lies by Brian Evenson. Now, I just read this in December and I can't stop thinking about it. As soon as I'd read it, I had to change all my ratings for the year because it was pretty much like in the middle of December, and I thought, yeah, that's it, I'm not going to get any more 5-star reads. But no, this book blew me out of the water. It's essentially, again, we're following the perspective and the in first person narrative of a priest paedophile. And yeah, he is made to see a therapist by his wife, as his wife knows that something's terribly wrong with him. And we get like these therapist transcripts between him and the therapist, between sections of the book, and just some of the things that the main character is saying about what he's done is just so horrific, and it's so detailed, and it's almost like he is trying to justify that this is the workings of the church. Like, it's very much interlaced with the religious aspect. It's not a real religion. Brian Evenson, for the sake of this book, makes up a religion, which I think is definitely it was the right thing to do. Therefore, it opens up critique to all religions, because we know that some religions and some areas of some religions are quite corrupt. And yeah, it's almost like the main character is trying to justify what he's done and almost blame it on the religion and say, this is what God wants, this is it. And he tries to so casually justify what he's doing. It's almost like he's not doing anything wrong, like, to himself. You know, he thinks that what he's doing is fine, which is just horrific, really, because again, there's a lot of well, obviously he's a paedophile, so there's a lot of children involved in his victims. This has got a very cold and humorous tone to it, and the way it was executed was just very, very good. I will definitely, this was my first book that I'd read by Brian Evenson, and immediately I've not pre-ordered, but I've ordered another book of his, which is called Last Days, and I will be reading that too, because I absolutely loved this author's writing style. Now, the next two books I want to talk about are more of a social commentary and disturbing in that way, and one of them is The Sluts by Dennis Cooper. This was hands down my favourite book of last year. I absolutely love this, and the only reason why I've not got a physical copy is I actually lent it to my partner's mom, of all people, which is quite funny in itself. But yeah, this book is insanely good. It was in everything that I wanted in a book. It literally 5 stars, no notes, perfect the way it is. This is a book that scratched the itch in my brain. I will definitely be doing a full review of this at some point, because I could just talk about this book for like an hour straight, and there's so much to unpack with this. But basically, we follow Brad, who is an escort, and Brad starts to gain some traction through the California scene. Now, this is told solely through escort reviews and emails and forum transcripts, so mixed media. There's not one narrator, there's not one overarching narrator to this book. It's almost like you're getting snippets of information. And as this book goes on, Brad becomes in the centre of a lot of drama and speculation in the community, and therefore you get a lot of hearsay and what's happened, because everybody's putting their 2 cents in, really. This, to me, this book has a lot of unreliable narrators, and I absolutely love that. It's like an entire web. If you don't know what's fiction, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's not real, and you're trying to work out what's actually happened to this guy called Brad. There's a lot to say about this book. This book was written 20 years ago, and it kind of delves into the dangers of the internet and the dark web, which are still very much prevalent and true and relatable to today. So just the fact that Dennis Cooper was able to write a book 20 years ago that still very much relates to today is so good. And just the whole mixed media thing, to me, it was like reading a very, very messed up chat forum. And yeah, it almost felt like going on the dark web yourself. Not like I've ever been on the dark web, but it was like you were, as a reader, going into that. And yeah, it was just outstanding. There were some very, very dark graphic scenes in this, which is why it was obviously very disturbing. And yeah, it's not for the faint heart. There's definitely some things that happen to do with like male sexuality in this that just, yeah, heinous things. But this is a book that I know is going to stick with me for a while. And yeah, out of all these books, it's definitely my favourite. It's definitely my favourite. I don't know if I'm going to ever have a book that tops this book, to be quite honest with you, because it's just insanely well done. And it was my first Dennis Cooper, and you best believe I'm going to be reading more Dennis Cooper. If you have read any books by him before, please let me know, and please let me know which ones I should read, because this was insane. So the last book that I want to talk about, again, is a commentary on society. It is Along the Path of Torment by Chandler Morrison. This was another book that I read in December last year. I had a very, very good December reading month. And again, I had to alter some of my ratings of the year because I just rated this 5 stars immediately. I was like, yes, this is a bit of me. We basically get a commentary on the dark side of LA, particularly in the TV business. I think what made this so disturbing is the fact that we all know stuff has been going on at the minute with LA. It probably always has. And yeah, this kind of really takes apart and dissects LA in general and how bad it is. I think Chandler Morrison actually comes from LA, so he obviously he's had a lot of experience in the city. He knows the inner workings, and this book is really saying something. We follow Ty, who works for his uncle, and he's like a runner for his uncle. I think his uncle owns like a TV company, and Ty helps out, helps with the scripts, helps pretty much whatever that's called, I'm not sure. And his uncle is into some very dodgy shit. One day he introduces Ty to this 15-year-old aspiring actress, and things just take a turn for the worse from there. And yeah, we get a lot of accounts of Ty's uncle with this 15-year-old girl filming some particular scenes. But then Ty himself becomes a bit obsessed with this 15-year-old. It's all very messed up. We get some horrible, disgusting scenes in this, so be warned, involving children. This book, I think out of all of the books that I've spoke about, this has probably disturbed me the most. It was just so bleak and so dark. It's almost like you was reading into a black hole, black vortex or something, and the author just chews you up and spits you out again. It's just so horrific. Like, definitely go into this with when you're in an okay mindset, and definitely know what you're getting yourself in for, because it's dark. And it kind of got me just thinking about LA in general and all of the stuff that's been happening there. And yeah, this stuff could actually be true. And I think that's what really disturbed me the most. Like, I know that all the books I've spoken about kind of, you know, the human monsters and the horrific nature of some humans. But this one really got to me. And I will just note as well, like, Chandler Morrison wrote Dead Inside, and that was the first book that I read by him, and that was a satire, and I don't think, in all honesty, that shows off his writing potential and his true style. This is a very dark and bleak, gritty writing style, and yeah, it just sucks you in and spits you back out again. Be warned about this one. So this has been 6 of the most disturbing books that I have ever read. Let me know if you think that you've got a more disturbing recommendation than this, but I don't know how that would be possible, to be honest. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Also, let me know if you want like 6 of the most extreme books or 10 of the most extreme books that I've read, because in terms of content, there are definitely some extreme horror books which go into a lot more gory detail. But personally, these books that I've just spoke about are just really, really disturbed me the most. And I do think it's because a lot of them just revolve around human monsters. Definitely something that scares me the most. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.